Hello and welcome to this week's IG Live. Today I am talking to Arti Balan, and we're going to be talking about her middle grade fantasy novel called Warriors of Maayaguha. And it is set in partly in London, partly in South India, and it's based on South Indian mythology. And it also has a lot of lessons built in there about learning to fit in, learning to embrace change, adventure, and so on. Building and how do you create books for kids that really help them kind of embrace who they are and know that what they do matters and their voice is needed. Hello. Oh, I think you're a little bit frozen. We had a little connection problem with the connection at the beginning, but once we got it going when we were testing, it was fine. There you are. Hi.
Hello,
Good
good
to
to
see
see
you
you.
again. Well, why don't we jump right in and you can introduce yourself and tell us what was your journey to becoming an author?
Okay, fantastic. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. This is very exciting. Yeah, my name is Arti Balan. I'm an architect. I'm a mom to a bookworm,
Mhm.
and I grew up in India. I studied in England, and I now live in Abu Dhabi. So I think I love being in different cultures, and definitely something that has inspired my book, Warriors of Maayaguha. Um, Actually, the journey to being an author is quite a funny one because I think I've always loved writing. Even back in school, I really enjoyed just imagining places and writing creative stories. But I ended up choosing architecture as kind of my profession, and even though I kind of dabble in writing and poetry, I didn't really sit down to write anything, any kind of complete work until COVID. So a short answer is it's kind of thanks to COVID that I got the time to write this piece of work and complete it. And I've just been sat on it for a very long time, and it's really thanks to my daughter who kind of encouraged me to get it out into the world. And I guess now I can call myself an author thanks to her.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I mean, it's interesting because you talk about being an architect, but I think you've said that those two professions actually kind of work together. Like they're not so different as people might see because they can involve building things. On the one hand, you have the world building in your fantasy novel, but you also build things in real life through architecture. So how do those kind of work together?
Yeah, I think I've realized it's helping me with my book more than I initially thought. I thought they were really two different streams in a way. But, architecture is about creating experiences, right? Like you're kind of putting yourself in the shoes of the user of a building and imagining the journey that they take and how they experience the space around them. So when I was writing the book, I think that visualization that I do normally in my day-to-day job, I think that really helped me to describe it in words so that you can have the same experience that I'm thinking of. And trying to make this fantasy world as real as I could for the reader. So yeah, I think it turned out to be honestly a very helpful thing without actually realizing or without anything intentional about it.
Yeah. And to go back to what you talked about living in different places, you have this love of travel, exploring different cultures, especially you've talked specifically about storytelling and how different
Yes.
traditions, storytelling seems always to be important in whatever culture you're in and how it helps kind of shape and create communities. So what are some of the similarities and differences you've seen about how storytelling is used in different cultures?
Yeah, I love that question because I think I love stories in general. And I think even when I travel, I do tend to kind of really want to know the culture. And that usually comes through stories, right? Like you really need to understand how people relate to the world in a way. Like, you can see that in Australia, people who like they might live close to nature, so a lot of their stories revolve around relationship with nature. In India, for example, we believe in reincarnation and things like that. So time is kind of not always linear. So a lot of the stories that we have in India kind of talks about the past and the present and the future all kind of overlapping with each other in a way. But Western, I think, stories in general, I don't want to kind of group them. They are super interesting because they do kind of, follow a hero. I feel like that whole concept of having this brave hero who does amazing things kind of seems to come from there. So yeah, it kind of really, I feel like the type of stories different places tell
Mhm.
really tells you a lot about the history and the people and how they live. So I think even in my book here, I'm sure you can see all that inspiration.
Yeah,
uh,
definitely. Oh, that's fascinating.
yeah, I think stories are really the way we kind of leave a legacy, right? So
Mhm.
um, I think my story now has references to how people struggle with technology, and that is something you can imagine maybe people 10, 20 years down the line can understand about how people right now live.
Right.
um,
Yeah, I definitely,
so
I've
yeah,
watched or read some books or watched some movies with my kids that are from 20, 30, 40, like from when I was a kid, I hate to say like 40 years ago. And you could, like you say, there are struggles with technology, but they're a little different than maybe what we have
yes.
now. But so it's your book is very timely. But so let's talk about it. Warriors of Maayaguha. Tell us about the book and what was your inspiration behind it.
Right. Yeah, Warriors of Maayaguha kind of is really everything that is something very kind of real for me because I wanted my first book to be something around things that I'm really familiar with.
Mm,
So my daughter right now, she's growing up in kind of a mixed culture. So the book really is a celebration of heritage and nature and people allowing to be different things and all together at the same time and not really um, kind of shying away from any culture because every culture is beautiful and every culture, if you go back, really lives closely with nature. And
mm,
I just wanted to talk about all of that. But Indian mythology for me has always been so magical, and I love magic, and I love the kind of the magic in the everyday sort of thing.
mm,
So in this book, really, it's about a girl who is very normal in a lot of ways, who lives in a city like a lot of kids these days, but somehow gets put in a situation in a rainforest, if I can say that, where she's completely in out of her comfort zone, but how that turns out to be something she gets really passionate about and almost becomes like the purpose of her life. So it's a lot of themes about embracing change, embracing who you might be on the inside, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. And of course, good over evil,
yeah.
and trying to do the right thing. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about kind of the last part you mentioned about how she's lived grew up in London and then finds out that she has to move to India and she's
Yes.
not happy about it to say the least. But it ends up being what she would say is probably the best thing that ever happened to her, which we'll get into why later. But what do you think kids can take away from this book as far as learning to embrace change and try new things?
Um, yeah, I think change is part of life. We're all gonna experience change in one way or the other, and the way we go into it can really kind of influence how things turn out, right? And I want, especially children, because change for them can feel quite dramatic initially because they haven't seen a lot of things yet. So everything that they experience is kind of shapes them and they kind of feel attached to it. So I can imagine and understand that change is really big, especially for children. Um, but something amazing can come out of it and you just don't even know it sometimes, and you kind of look back and think, why did I struggle with this choice. And I just really wanted to encourage kids who might be going through something similar, whatever type of change, to think, oh, what if this is actually the best thing for me? What if I get magical powers? Or what
Yeah.
if I, just discover something amazing because of this? So it was really kind of uh, trying to inspire some children who might be struggling with these kind of changes to look at it positively and kind of go for it.
Right. And part of what makes it her struggle, because it's not as though she was really happy in London, but probably it felt much safer. And part of it is because, I mean, there are a number of reasons, but part of it is that she was mixed heritage and, so always felt kind of different, but she was really cut off from one side of her heritage. Her dad's from England, her mom's from India, but never really talked about it. She didn't, I think, had never even met her grandparents before, right? Until they had
Yes.
to move to India. So, how is that aspect of the story, the fact that she gets to reconnect with her Indian side, how does that kind of help her, kind of come into herself more?
I think I was dealing with, or I was trying to kind of touch on some sensitive, subjects sometimes, because there's a lot of pressure on, I think, mixed race kids growing up in the Western world to fit in and to kind of not really be in touch with their other heritage, whatever that might be, because it's just easier. I think
Right.
in the story, it's a little bit more dramatic in that she's never even met them.
Right.
But I think I just wanted to say that sometimes the the other heritage, where which is maybe the one that you don't interact with as much, might feel like something you need to kind of detach yourself from just to make it easier, let's say, to get along with people or to fit in. Um, but that's not the case, especially as you grow older, having different backgrounds and cultures and experiences is going to make you so much of a better person.
Right.
It's going to make you so much richer in terms of what you bring to the world, and it's something that you really should connect with and you should be proud of, even if you feel different slightly. Difference is not necessarily a bad thing. Fitting in is not always a good thing. Like, trying to kind of celebrate your individuality is maybe. I didn't struggle with it quite as much, but I can tell that there's a lot of kids growing up these days who might struggle with things like this. And it was just
Yeah.
to say, no, I mean, trying to encourage it, like, it's every heritage is beautiful, and you don't really need to pick one over the other.
Right, definitely. And what's interesting, I mean, to go back to what you said about how being different can be a good thing. I think in Akila's case, the main character, uh, that is very dramatic. I'm kind of amped up as so many things are in novels, because her transformation when she does reconnect with her heritage, reconnect with this place that she had never even visited before, where her mom was from,
Yeah,
she goes through a big transformation and actually discovers she has superpowers. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but I don't think that one's much of a spoiler since that happens fairly early on. Um,
yeah,
but part of it is, and then looking back on when she was in London, a lot of the things that made her stick out, that made things difficult for her, actually were connected to her superpowers. She just didn't realize it, like that she always had trouble with animals, because animals would always, she felt like they were always attacking her, but it was actually that she has this connection with them that she just didn't understand. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Again, this idea about being different could actually be your superpower.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that came from the fact that I think sometimes things that we kind of struggle with, or people even that we struggle with, is because we have a lot in common, or we have something that ties us or connects us with that. So sometimes when there is a resistance, or a fear which is really feels a bit baseless, I think it's good to explore that or to learn more about that, because it might actually be something that you're meant to know about, or you're meant to kind of understand to grow as a person.
Mm,
Um, so I think in this story, I felt that, especially for a city girl like Akila,
mhm,
um, being in nature very rarely can be daunting because there's sights and smells, and animals are things that you can't really predict their behavior, so it can feel a little bit scary, but it's actually something that was additionally worrying for Akila because she had something brewing inside her which she was trying to avoid or run away from.
mhm.
So she could have, in a way, gained her superpowers even earlier if she was a little bit more open to that.
And we were talking a little bit ahead of time about how, as you mentioned, for a lot of kids who are growing up in the city, nature can feel very overwhelming and scary. And this book really helps kids show that once you start exploring, especially if you know have somebody who to help you guide you, it can actually be really not just beautiful but magical. I mean, in this book, literally magical. And there's a real tension in the book between nature and technology, but you don't make it so simple as just saying all technology is bad. We should all go live in nature, because you do kind of complicate it and show that sometimes nature, I mean, excuse me, sometimes technology can be good. Like for the kids living out in this village, it gives them access to more resources than they could have where they live. But so what's the balance there about how we can use technology? Because I think you make a very compelling case for the dangers of being cut off from nature, and that we tend to over rely on technology in ways that really cut us off from all of this magic that and of course that leads to a lot of consequences, not just for us but for taking care of the planet. So what kind of balance can we hope for?
Yeah, I think balance is the key word, right? Like we can't avoid technology, and technology does have a lot of benefits, and it is the future, pretty much. But it's not letting it control us, and understanding that it is still a tool that we need to pick up when we need it and be able to put it down. Uh, Rather than kind of letting it consume us and being the only way that we have fun, the only way we learn, the only way we communicate. It's almost replacing everything that's real. And I think that's the danger that I was trying to highlight,
Mhm.
that as much as we spend time with technology or interacting with technology, we almost need to have an antidote of really intentionally connecting with nature, because without nature, we don't have anything really. And it is, like you say, magical, and you might actually find that you rely on technology less because you feel so energized and entertained being in nature with your friends. I know a lot of us don't have that privilege sometimes living in a city of kind of doing that, but
Right.
in whatever way you can, I think intentionally connecting with nature, I think will have huge benefits on kids' psychology, adult psychology. And I try to describe that as much as I can in the book to really visually entice you to try and do that.
Yeah, and you really see this transformation with Akila to, when she's in London, she spends most of her time watching TV, playing on her iPad, watching
Yeah.
video, and then she kind of almost forgets about it after she's in India for a while, because she has so much fun exploring out in the forest with her friends, and then of course all of the adventures that happen later. But even before that begins, she's just having so much fun playing that I think she probably never would have imagined before.
Exactly. And I think life is almost easier in a way when you live more aligned with it, right? Like if you can eat whatever food, because I talk a lot about food in the book. Because I think food is definitely something that you should enjoy, and, eating fresh and eating healthy food, because you're burning it all off because you're running around, you're having fun. And I think that's the strange part, because now technology is making us think about diets and all of that. But, none of that is actually required if we have that balance, and if you can eat healthy, enjoy your food, but just also enjoy activity and exploring. And so I think, yeah, that was really important to me. And I think that kind of comes out
Yes.
in the book as well.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even mention that, but that's kind of a side part of it is that she finds that because she struggles with her weight and she struggles with being active and being able to do all of those things a lot of us hated in physical education class. She really struggles with that. But then when she gets to India and is out exploring with her friends, it just naturally she becomes more fit, more active, and but she's enjoying it. She never, like you say, she never had to intentionally
Yeah.
try for any of that. It just kind of came with being more aligned with nature.
Exactly. I mean, I want to say because from our conversations, it might seem like this book is turning out to be all educational, but it really isn't, right?
It
Like
really isn't. Yeah. I think,
it's
and
just
I don't know how much kids will. I mean, I think they will internalize this with. I don't know how much it's really not didactic that they're learning these lessons. It's just it kind of comes through in this story as as adults we're kind of parsing it out. But no, it's just people should know this is just a really fun story. I mean, I was telling you ahead of time. I picked it up because I thought, I need to read this to prepare for this interview. But then I just read it in like less than 2 days. I just like burned through it because I was like, oh, I need to know what's going to happen. What is this? So it's just a
oh,
really
that
fun
makes me so
adventure
happy.
story. Yeah, definitely. And well, to go back to that because I'm watching our time. I want to make sure we talk about because we've been talking about maybe some of more of the more practical aspects of this, but this book is a fantasy book and it's magic and it is really beautiful. And I know you said it's based on South Indian mythology, and of course I don't really know that much about it, so I don't know how much of what's in the book is drawn directly from mythology. How did you decide what you needed to adapt to suit your story? Like, what was that process like?
Okay. Um, it's kind of I must say mythology based
Mm,
because it's all the mythology kind of stories that I've been told and I've read from different parts of India. So it has a lot of those themes, but it's not actually a real story.
mm,
Because I didn't because a lot of the mythology sometimes is religious or it's folklore, but this is just like a kind of my own imagination drawing on some of those themes of sibling rivalry and
mm,
feuds or obviously magic and curses and really talking about traditions, and even the traditions are not real traditions that I talk about in the book, but it's very common in kind of villages in India to have their own special traditions and cultures and celebrations. And so it's kind of all of it, but none of it at the same time. So it's it's purely kind of imagination and fiction, but hoping that it has the same uh, interest and detail that mythological stories have.
So, and if I understand correctly, this is going to be the first in a trilogy. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah, I
is it
kind of
all going to
mentioned it.
follow Aquila?
Aquila will always be one of the key characters, but I am planning to have additional characters, both
Mm,
good and bad, introduced into that, more magic,
mm,
and it might take you to other places as well.
Oh, very interesting. Well, I can't wait. When can we expect to see those? Of like, what stage are they in now?
Um, It's very early stages. I have to be honest. I have the whole kind of trajectory mapped out,
Mm,
but I'm working on the second book at the minute. So I'm hoping to get it out probably early next year.
nice. Oh, that's not bad. I mean, especially for middle
Thank
grade
you.
people, they take a long time. And I also want to make sure people know about your website because you have a lot of resources on there. Can you talk to us a little about that?
Sure. Yeah, we had a lot of fun putting the website together. My daughter was heavily involved. She was
Mm,
almost the advisor because she's looked a lot at these websites. She knows exactly what she looks for,
mm,
and really wanted us to give a visual of what these characters might
Mm.
look like. So we have illustrations of that. My husband, who worked on the cover, also worked on the website. So it's
Wow.
been a bit of a family affair. But on the website, I've tried to provide also some curriculum guidance for schools or homeschoolers in terms of, because all the themes we talked about around technology, nature, sustainability, I think can be really interesting in a classroom setting to discuss as well. So we've provided that, and I would love to get artwork from the readers because
Mm.
I've tried to keep, I can say, Jiva, the mythical creature, quite elusive
Mm.
in terms of how, she looks like. So it's something, again, I love to see pictures or
Yeah.
creations of how you imagine it
Mm.
on there.
Oh.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
No, I love that, and also when one of the things I really loved was having them. I'm one of the people that when I read fantasy novels, I like to see the maps, and so it gives a really, I mean, it's a really beautiful website, very beautifully done, and to have the map on there was nice. So, well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for talking with us. This is, like I said, I've just really enjoyed the book, and this is so much fun getting to talk with you. So, thank you for being on today.
No, thank you so much. That was really fun talking to you as well. And I love your Instagram page. So please do
Thank
keep
you.
doing what you're doing.
Yes, and for people who want to find out more, I mean, obviously we'll have the link in the caption to your Instagram page where it has a lot of information, which also links to the website where you can get the book and find all of those resources we were just mentioning. So thanks to all of you for watching. If you joined us late, this is going to be on Instagram in just a few minutes and then later on our YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Arti.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.